Right, it's probably a good idea to create a title screen. The way that I've done that is I've created a sprite and two more backgrounds. So this is my sprite, which I've decided to call it Flappy Fighter. And I made the sprite quite large this time. Now, I did all of this in GameMaker, so you can use something else to create these sprites with if you want to. But for now, it's not a big deal. You don't want to spend too long on a tutorial. And you can see that down here it does say, if I just put fill it with black or red, you can see it says push space to start down there. So that's that sprite. The reason I didn't build this into the background is because I actually wanted to animate this title, which I'm going to show you in a sec. So if you're good at maths, there's some really cool tricks that you can do. If you're not, you don't need to worry about it. You can just put it in as a static little title. I've got a background title screen. So I've got a little Death Star thing up the top there. And I've got a game over screen as well. So these are both just static backgrounds. They don't animate. They're not going to be moving. They're not very interesting at the moment. And then I've created an object for my title screen. But before I've done that, I've got a room title, which comes first, and I've got a game over room, which I had before. The game over room, all I did was go to backgrounds and change the background to my game over. Now obviously what I've done here is I made sure that that background image was 300 by 200, the same height and width as my room. So that's my game over screen. There's nothing really happening in there. My title screen, if I just remove this from it, just has that BG title as the background. And I have added this in, which I'll explain in a moment. So to do my little title screen, I just want to demonstrate what it does first. Oops, I can't without that in there. So I'm going to put that in the center. And you can see here that it slowly animates. Also, I push space and the game starts. So we know that the game works by now. But this little animation effect looks quite neat. It just gives it that extra oomph that a static title screen wouldn't do. Lets the user know, yeah, I've actually put some effort into this. But it does require a little bit of understanding of maths. In this case, a sine wave and how a sine wave works. If you don't know about sine waves, don't worry too much. You can just copy this code. But if you do understand how a sine wave works, you know that the further right along the x-axis you go, the y value kind of oscillates between a maximum and a minimum value. You could do it with cosine as well. It's not going to matter. You won't want to do it with tan though. It will kind of jump to weird extremities and give you errors all along the way. So the way I did this, I created a new object called title, object title, and at create, I've set a step count value to 0. That's all I've done. I could really call this anything. I could call it xval or something like that, but I don't want to call it x because x is the built-in value. Then in the step event, I put in a piece of code. The step count equals step count plus 1. So I'm not just doing it plus 1, and I'll demonstrate why in a minute. And then I've got y equals sine of step count times 10 plus the room height divided by 2. Now I'll break this down and demonstrate what each bit does. So step count plus 1. This is basically the speed that it's going to be oscillating at. So see if I put it at plus 1, it goes jumpy like that. And I'll bring that in and change that back to 0.1. So it slowly oscillates. Now the reason it does this, and I'll just bring up a picture of a sine wave. This is a picture of a sine wave here. And let's say that this is step count 0.0. What I'm doing is in here y equals sine step count. So when step count is equal to 0, y is at 0. When step count is equal to 0.1, y might be here. And when step count is equal to 0.2, y might be here. And so the y value is changing and the x value is just going along there. I'm not changing the x value of the object. But I am using this variable that runs along this way to determine what the y position of my object is. If this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry too much because this is a bit more advanced, but there are some cool things that you can do if you understand some mathematics as well. So then when we get to here, it's going to be back at the original position, and then it starts traveling down negative until it gets to here, and then it goes back. If I just did +1, well, it's going to be moving along this a lot quicker. It's going to be moving along this much quicker, and that's why it's going to be jumping up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, rather than slowly oscillating between the two values. Now, this bit here times 10, if I leave that off, you'll see that it doesn't really move a whole lot. So I'm just kind of increasing the way that it moves. So it kind of floats around a little bit here, but it's not moving much. So I just modify that. So whatever this value is, it might be like 2 or something. I'm going to times it by 10, so it increases it. So 2 would become 20, so it's moving 20 pixels instead of 2 pixels. Then this last bit here is just plus room height divided by 2. So y is going to be, otherwise it's going to be really low. So if I take that off, it's going to appear at the top of the screen. So I don't want it to do that. I want to increase it so that it goes down. So I just go plus room height divided by 2. If I add room height, it's going to appear right at the bottom. But room height divided by 2 is going to put it right in the center of the screen. And I get this nice little oscillating animation effect in here. Now, the last thing I need to do for the title is add a push space event, and it goes to the next room. I added a fade in and fade out transition on that. You can add whatever transition you want. But push space to start, it fades out, it fades in. I go to my game, and the game is working. So after this, next video we're going to look at creating some more graphics for this, importing some sprites for the first time. So actually finding a decent sprite, a decent background, and importing that.